My sisters and brothers, may the Lord give you peace. Thank you for joining us. Turner Classic Movie host Jacqueline Stewart of Sunday Night Silent Classics recently remarked, "Movies allow me to walk in the shoes of someone very different than myself." Movies allow me to walk in the shoes of someone very different than myself. The same is true with going to church, yes? We just don't go to church to escape the world's problems or craziness or just to get a message for the week. We come to church because the church allows us to walk in the shoes of someone very different. And walking in his shoes and in the shoes of people whose experiences are very different than our own, we hopefully become a very different kind of people. The readings today and for the next several weeks, in fact throughout August, are going to be talking about the kind of people we're invited to be, namely a Eucharistic people. And the Eucharist, as the Church has so consistently and deeply taught, is the source and the summit of our faith. Now let me repeat those two words, source and summit. Source means our faith flows out of the Eucharist. Source means that the Eucharist drives, pushes, motivates our faith. It steers our faith. It's the get up and go to our faith. And yet how many Catholics just drag themselves into church? Here is where we come to know Christ most intimately. Here his grace is tangibly given to us, not spiritually, but physically. Here we consume God as God consumes us with God's grace. The Roman, Anglican, Episcopalian, and Lutheran churches all believe we devour, munch, eat, drink, ingest God. In the hope of what? That we finally become what we eat. The early Christians saw the Eucharist not primarily as a personal, individualistic thing, a solitary supper, your private party with Jesus, but a miracle that drives our faith. That what we eat might just make a difference in the coming week, not only for ourselves, but for others. Now, you might think, well, can't be me. I don't have that much to give. Well, look at the boy in today's gospel. I used to think the disciples found him, and then it hit me, this is his offering. And we see Jesus can take whatever he has, whatever little he has, bless it, break it, and it's enough, more than enough. In fact, did you catch the same words are used at the Last Supper? And there's more than enough. So the first lesson, I think, to leave you with today is we make what little we have available to the Lord. We make what little we have available to the Lord. And Jesus takes the little that is available and he uses it to make a difference. So name the loaves and the fish you have. No one is without gifts. We may be sorry or embarrassed that we don't have much more to bring, but little is always much in the hands of Jesus. Identify the loaves you have. Otherwise, the world may very well be denied miracle after miracle because we will not bring to Jesus what we have and what we are. But there's something more here. The gospel captures two worldviews. First is the worldview of scarcity, and we tend to get these worldviews very young. I myself, growing up, my mother was raising 4 kids by herself. It was all hand-me-downs from my cousins, being on welfare, and it all moves you toward what? Anxiety. Protect what you have. There isn't enough to go around. Worry if there will be enough. And I'm afraid it's much of our country, too. There isn't enough health care to go around. That's a worldview of scarcity. And in the gospel, Philip and the disciples represent that worldview. There's only 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. What good are these among so many? But the gospel is telling us there's another worldview, and sooner or later you have to choose it. It doesn't come naturally, and that is the worldview of abundance. There's a big world out there. There's a lot of options. There are many paths. There's a lot of opportunities. There are a lot of choices. There is always another creative way to look at it, and yet most people don't look at life this way. Most people are afraid they don't have enough and don't take advantage of the many levels of opportunities life offers them. But here's the thing. If you are dependent on a finite source, if you only have, as most of us do, a limited amount of money, one limited intellect, one limited life, of course it is easy to look at life in terms of scarcity. There isn't enough. There isn't enough of me. There isn't enough goodness. There isn't enough of God. On the other hand, the worldview of abundance depends upon recognizing you are in touch with an infinite source. And if you have never made contact with that infinite source, you will be stingy. You will be selfish. You will guard and hoard the little bit you have. How different we are from Jesus, who extended the divine abundance to sparrows, lilies, ravens, donkeys, the grass of the fields, and even the hairs on one's head. No stingy God here. Jesus represents the worldview of abundance in every one of his multiplication stories. What was the miracle of abundance at the wedding feast of Cana? Wine. Did he make just a few bottles? No, gallons and gallons and gallons. And that tiny, tiny mustard seed that becomes the largest of plants. That's the only possible message. There's plenty. That's the point of the leftovers. God just doesn't just give them what they need. God gives them more than they need. And that is really an important reminder to us, that God is always going to give us more than we really need. God knows what you need, and God will spoil you if you come with a humble heart. But it is something we will only fully experience when we learn to draw upon an infinite source. If the source is infinite, we are infinite. If the source is finite, of course, we are finite too. I remember one of my professors saying, in our Franciscan view, ours is not the God of absolutes, laws, rules, so forth. In our Franciscan view, ours is not the God of absolutes, but the God of abundance. Ours is a God far too wonderful. The love of God always, always will make it enough.